In the shifting sands of the Valley of the Kings, a place picked clean by centuries of tomb raiders and archaeologists, a discovery was made that should have remained buried forever. Not by sand, but by fear. For generations, local whispers spoke of a cursed king, a heretic pharaoh so feared that his name was struck from every record, his tomb deliberately hidden. Its location a secret passed down only through frightened whispers. They called him Akenra, the Shadow Pharaoh. Legend said his reign was one of terror, not of conquest, but of dark rituals, and forbidden magic, culminating in a curse so potent it promised not just death, but the eternal damnation of the soul. Our story begins with Dr. Rhys Thorne, a brilliant but disgraced Egyptologist, driven by a desperate need to reclaim his reputation. He'd spent his fortune chasing the myth of Akenra, guided by a fragmented papyrus he believed was the key. His small, underfunded team consisted of Elias, a young ego-tech specialist, Kenji, the seasoned photographer who had seen too much in his career, and Samira, a local guide and historian whose family had lived in the shadow of the valley for centuries. It was Samira who felt the first chill, a cold dread that had nothing to do with the desert night. After weeks of fruitless digging under the scorching sun, the ground-penetrating radar finally pinged. Not a grand entrance, but a simple, unmarked shaft buried deep beneath a rocky outcrop. It felt wrong. Tombs of the pharaohs were monuments. This was a grave. As they descended, the air grew thick and heavy, smelling of dust and something else. Something ancient and bitter, like burnt spices and decay. The walls were bare, no glorious hieroglyphs celebrating the deceased's journey to the afterlife. Just a single, stark warning carved above the sealed entrance at the bottom of the shaft. Samira translated it, her voice trembling. "Here lies the eater of souls. Disturb his slumber, and your spirit shall be his feast for eternity." Thorne, blinded by ambition, dismissed it as a common deterrent. He gave the order. The stone seal, impossibly heavy, was breached. A gust of foul air rushed out, extinguishing their lanterns and plunging them into absolute darkness. When Elias finally got the emergency lights on, a fine, black dust coated everything. On the floor lay dozens of mummified desert animals, snakes, scorpions, jackals, all facing away from the door, as if they had been trying to flee something inside. Kenji's hands shook as he took the first photo. The flash revealed something unsettling. In the brief, bright light, the animals' shadows seemed to stretch and twist, momentarily taking on grotesque, human-like forms. He didn't mention it, thinking it was a trick of the light. He was wrong. The antechamber was a macabre gallery. Instead of treasures, it was filled with canopic jars, hundreds of them, far more than any single burial would require. But these jars weren't made of alabaster or clay. They were obsidian, black as night, and each was sealed not with wax, but with lead. A chilling realization dawned on Samira. These weren't for organs. Each jar, according to the forgotten lore, was meant to imprison a tormented spirit. They were standing in a library of captured souls. As Elias set up his equipment to scan the next chamber, his monitors began to glitch. Ghostly, distorted faces flickered across the screens, their silent screams visible for a fraction of a second. He rebooted the system, blaming the strange atmospheric pressure, but a low whisper slithered into his headphones, a dry, sibilant voice speaking a dialect so ancient it was barely recognizable. It was a single, repeated word, invaders. Ignoring the growing sense of dread, Thorne pushed forward into the burial chamber itself. The room was a stark, black basalt throne room. In the center, atop a step dais, was not a sarcophagus, but a throne. And seated upon it was a mummified figure, not wrapped in linen, but encased in a dark, resin-like substance, its hands clutching an obsidian scepter topped with a coiled serpent. Its head was tilted, as if listening. This was Akenra. The air crackled with a static energy, and the hieroglyphs on the wall behind the throne began to glow with a faint, sickly green light. Kenji raised his camera, trying to capture the eerie scene. As the flash fired, the shadows in the room didn't just move, they detached from the walls. They grew, coalescing into tall, slender figures with elongated limbs and hollow eyes. They were the guardians of the tomb, shades bound to the Pharaoh's will. One of them drifted towards Elias, its touch causing his equipment to spark violently before exploding, showering the room in darkness once more. His scream was cut short. When the emergency lights flickered back on, Elias was gone. Only his scorched boots remained. Panic erupted. Thorn, now realizing the catastrophic gravity of his mistake, shouted for them to run. But the way back was blocked. The stone door had sealed itself. The whispering was louder now, coming from all directions, a chorus of tormented voices from the canopic jars, which were now vibrating on their shelves. The hieroglyphs on the wall pulsed with a sickening rhythm, and Samira, her eyes wide with terror, began to translate them aloud. They didn't tell a story of a life. They were an incantation, a ritual. Akenra hadn't been buried here. He had performed a ceremony to transform himself into something that could never truly die, a being that fed on life force itself. The shadow creatures closed in on Kenji, their wispy fingers reaching for him. Only Thorn and Samira were left, huddled together, the single beam of Samira's flashlight their only shield. The cracking from the throne grew louder. The head of the mummy slowly, deliberately, turned towards them. The scepter it held began to glow, the obsidian serpent's eyes burning with the same green fire. Thorn, finally broken, fell to his knees, babbling apologies to the specter he had awakened. He had sought fame, but had found only damnation. Samira, however, remembered a detail from the old legends, a desperate last resort. The curse could only be sustained as long as the Pharaoh's name was known, remembered. The ritual needed witnesses. It fed on the terror of those who read the story, who spoke his name. She looked at the glowing incantation on the wall, the source of his power. Her choice was clear. With a desperate cry, she grabbed a heavy, discarded tool from the floor and ran towards the wall, not the door. She began smashing the glowing hieroglyphs, chipping away at the ancient stone, trying to erase the story, to erase his name from existence. The moment her tool struck the first glyph, the mummy on the throne let out an unearthly shriek, a sound that tore at their very souls. The shadow guardians recoiled, dissipating like smoke. Thorn looked up, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. But as Samira struck the wall again and again, the tomb began to shake violently. The ceiling cracked and stones began to fall. Akenra's power, unraveled, was bringing his prison down around them. Thorn screamed for Samira to stop, to run, but she ignored him, her face a mask of grim determination as she landed blow after blow, destroying the cursed narrative. The final, crucial glyph, the one depicting Akenra's name, shattered. For a single, silent moment, everything stopped. The whispers ceased. The glowing faded. The mummy on the throne slumped, lifeless once more. But it was too late. The structural integrity of the tomb was gone. The entire ceiling gave way. The video ends here with a sudden cut to black. The last thing we hear is the deafening roar of collapsing rock and a final, desperate cry from Thorn. For weeks, the official report would state that a team of 4 archaeologists, led by Dr. Thorn, vanished in the Valley of the Kings, presumed lost in a sudden, localized earthquake that caused a cave-in. No tomb was ever recorded. The story became a cautionary tale, another mystery of the desert. But the final shot of our video is not of the desert. It's footage from a security camera, weeks later, in the crowded halls of the Cairo Museum. A tour guide is leading a group past a display of minor artifacts recovered years ago from an unknown dig site. Behind the group, a solitary figure stands transfixed, staring at a small, obsidian shard in a display case. It's a fragment of a larger carving. The figure is pale, gaunt, with eyes that hold an ancient terror to its doctor. Thorn. He's survived. But he is not alone. As he leans closer to the glass, his reflection stares back, but in the reflection, His eyes glow with a faint, sickly green light. The curse wasn't broken. It was transferred. Akena's name was erased, but his spirit, his hunger, had found a new vessel, and now he was no longer trapped in the dark beneath the sands. He was free, walking among us, looking for his next feast.